Hey there, fellow explorer, and welcome to a special Espirito edition of the Deep Dive.
Espirito.
Yeah, Espirito Deep, you could say.
I like that.
You know, it's Italian for expert. Okay, so you guys sent in some really interesting stuff this time, excerpts from Dia de Muertos, a celebration of life and remembrance.
Yeah, that should be fun.
So what I'm thinking is we'll take a deep dive and, try to understand how this whole celebration of death, which sounds kind of weird when you just say it like that,
Right.
how it became such a huge part of Mexican culture and, identity, especially in Mexico and for people of Mexican heritage, all over the world.
Yeah,
And, it's not about being sad or anything. It's a joyful way to remember the people we've lost.
definitely. And it's amazing how this tradition blends history and culture together. I mean, the fact that Dia de Muertos is still going strong today really shows how resilient and adaptable both indigenous and Catholic traditions can be.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so the source material mentions that it has pre-Hispanic roots. Can
Yeah.
you talk a bit more about that?
Sure thing. It goes way back to the indigenous civilizations of Mesoamerica, with the Aztecs being like a prime example. They had really complex ideas about the afterlife. For example, they didn't believe in just one place where all souls went. Instead, they thought there were different realms depending on how you died. Rituals for honoring the dead were a super important part of their culture. And these weren't always sad occasions, they were more like a continuation of the life cycle. They believed that offerings and ceremonies were vital for helping the dead on their journey to the afterlife.
So the Spanish colonizers came in with their Catholic traditions. How did these two totally different worldviews end up mixing and kind of merging together?
That's where this fascinating thing called syncretism comes in. It's basically the blending of different religious or cultural beliefs. See, the Catholic observances of All Saints' Day on November 1st and All Souls' Day on November 2nd, they kind of lined up with the indigenous practices of remembering the dead. Over time, these traditions got all mixed up and reinterpreted each other, leading to what we know as Dia de Muertos today. It's pretty remarkable how both sets of beliefs managed to not just survive but thrive, don't you think?
I know, it's so interesting. So at its heart, what's the main belief that makes Dia de Muertos what it is for those who celebrate it?
Well, at the core of it all is the belief that the spirits of loved ones come back to visit their families on November 1st and 2nd. It's not seen as a spooky or sad event, it's more like a happy yearly reunion, a chance to reconnect with those who have passed.
Which brings us to the ofrendas,
Yeah.
or altars. Those are so much more than just decorations, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're these incredibly elaborate and personal creations people set up in their homes. Everything you see on an ofrenda has a specific meaning and purpose. What really caught your eye about these altars in the source material?
Well, the cempasúchil, those bright orange marigolds, are hard to miss. The source material says that their bright color and strong smell are meant to guide the spirits home. It's like a fragrant path leading them back.
Exactly. And then you have papal picado, those delicate and colorful paper decorations. They represent the fragility of life and the joy of the occasion. They add a light and airy feel to
Mhm.
the altar.
And of course, there are candles everywhere, which literally and figuratively illuminate the altars. What's their significance?
Candlelight offers warmth and guidance to the returning spirits. It's a way of welcoming them and lighting their way. Then there's the very personal touch of providing food and drinks. Families carefully place the deceased's favorite foods and beverages on the altar. It's like they're offering hospitality and welcoming them back home. And you can't forget pan de muerto, the special bread of the dead. It's a key part of the offering.
And then it gets even more personal when you add photographs, special mementos and belongings of the deceased. Those items really help to paint a picture of the individuals being honored.
For sure. Those items are like tangible reminders, helping to evoke memories and making the spirits feel truly recognized and remembered. They're all about making the altar a welcoming space filled with familiar things.
And then there are those sugar skulls, the calaveras. They're everywhere. But their meaning might surprise some people.
It's true they're skulls, but they're not supposed to be scary or morbid. Instead, they symbolize the lighthearted side of the holiday and the idea that death is a natural part of life. They're often colorfully decorated and sometimes even have the names of the deceased written on them.
So beyond the home altars, the source also mentions cemetery visits. What's the atmosphere like there during Dia de Muertos?
It's actually not what a lot of people might expect. Instead of being somber and quiet, cemetery visits during Dia de Muertos are often festive and communal. Families gather to clean and decorate the graves with lots of the same things you see on the home altars: bright flowers, flickering candles, and offerings of food and drinks. Picture it. Families gathered around graves decked out with vibrant flowers and candles. There might be music playing, maybe a favorite song of the person who's passed, and the smell of shared food fills the air. It's a really powerful mix of remembering and celebrating together.
You mentioned earlier that Dia de Muertos is full of symbolism. Apart from the marigolds and sugar skulls, what other important symbols should we know about?
Well, as we touched on earlier, the skull itself is a big one. It's a reminder that life is cyclical, not something to be feared. And then there's the famous La Catrina. It's interesting how cultural symbols change over time.
Oh yeah, La Catrina,
Yeah.
that elegant female skeleton all dressed up in fancy clothes. He's become so connected to Dia de Muertos. Where did she come from?
La Catrina was originally a satirical cartoon character created by the Mexican artist José Guadalupe Posada. It was meant to be a commentary on Mexicans who were trying to act like European aristocrats and forgetting their indigenous roots. But over time, her image has been adopted and reinterpreted. Now she's an iconic symbol of Dia de Muertos, representing the idea that death makes everyone equal. No matter how fancy we dress, underneath, we're all the same.
So let's get the timing straight. When exactly does this celebration happen?
It's traditionally celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. November 1st is often dedicated to honoring children who have died, sometimes called Dia de los Inocentes. November 2nd is for remembering and honoring adults who have passed away.
It's important to make a clear distinction between Dia de Muertos and Halloween, even though they happen around the same time. The source material really stresses that these are two very different traditions with different backgrounds and meanings.
Right. They both fall in late October and early November, but that's about where the similarities end. Halloween has roots in ancient Celtic traditions, with themes of fear, costumes, and trick-or-treating. Dia de Muertos is rooted in Mesoamerican and Catholic traditions. It's all about celebrating life and remembering loved ones.
So to sum it all up, what's the big takeaway about Dia de Muertos? Why is it so deeply ingrained in Mexican culture?
Well, if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, Dia de Muertos is this beautiful and meaningful tradition that offers a unique perspective on death. Death isn't seen as a scary end, but as a natural part of life's cycle. It's a time for families to get together, remember and celebrate the lives of those they've lost, and find joy in those memories.
So for you listening, the key takeaway is that Dia de Muertos is way more than just a holiday. It's a vibrant and meaningful celebration of life and remembrance, rooted in centuries of history and full of symbolism.
And it makes you wonder how other cultures around the world think about death and remember those who have passed away. What do their traditions tell us about their values and beliefs about life and death? It's a fascinating question to think about.
Yeah, that's something to think
Oh,
about.
no, right?
Well, that was a really interesting deep dive. Until next time.
See ya.